Welcome back to Sustainability Asia, our series discussing sustainability priorities and issues around Asia. My name is Nick Merritt, a finance partner based in Norton Rose Fulbright, Singapore office. This week, I'm delighted to be joined by Subash Narayanan, the head of project finance at DBS. Welcome, Subash.
Thanks, Nick. It's a pleasure to be here.
Subash, a couple of weeks ago, we had the pleasure of talking to Mikkel Larsen, the Chief Sustainability Officer of DBS, about the priorities that the bank has across the entire banking spectrum around sustainability, and in particular about needing to finance the decarbonisation and pathway to net zero. In the project finance space, perhaps you could tell us what that looks like in the business that your team are doing at the moment.
Yeah. I think if you look at from a sustainability perspective, the bank started its journey a few years back. We started off by doing what is the obvious, which is announcing our own plans around coal, how we are exiting coal, what's our plan for it. We started working on the renewable side a few years back, and we did our first deal about 2014 in terms of wind in India. And in the last 3 years, if you look at what has happened in terms of portfolio, from about 2 to 3 deals in a year, we are probably averaging about 8 to 9 deals in a year. We've set a target for ourselves a couple of years back saying we'll do about 20 billion of funding into renewable, about 10 out of that 20 in renewable and sustainability loans by 2024. Interestingly, in about 3 years, we have already reached about 4 billion plus. And we expect that with the pace of how things are happening, we should be able to meet and probably also exceed that target. I think some of the sustainability linked targets for the bank has already been increased over time as we see Asia also going full on into the sustainability side.
That's great. Yes, so stretch targets as the momentum increases within the bank. Turning perhaps to next year, we see that the bank has been involved in the establishment of Climate Impact X on the carbon offset side of things. We see that Indonesia recently announced their new energy plan, but still with only 51% targets towards renewables. And around things like this, the Singapore Green Energy Plan, the importance of transition within the economy in Asia. What's the bank's priorities in the project finance space, or where do you see some of the main areas of focus going into next year?
Yeah, from a project finance perspective, going into next year, we hope renewables will contribute more than a third of our transactions and even our own from an internal perspective in terms of volume of assets. If you look at the type of deals we are doing, we do advisory in renewable across the region. We have some mandate in terms of offshore wind in Taiwan at the moment. We are advising on rooftop solar, corporate PPA transactions in Hong Kong. We got utility scale projects in India, which we are looking at. So from a priority perspective, the utility scale continues to be the bigger deals which we chase. The new markets we are looking at mainly would be the corporate PPAs. In some of the markets, the offtake arrangements are switching, where there's a lot more privatization or what we call as direct PPA arrangements coming in. Hong Kong, Singapore, Australia are prime examples. We did our first corporate PPA deal in Taiwan about a year back, and we see more of that coming into the future. Rooftop is quite interesting because it's a agglomeration of smaller projects with multiple off-takers, and we actually have come up with our own internal parameters of how we will evaluate these structures. Something a little bit akin to a securitization, but the key difference is that when you are securitizing something, the portfolio is already built up and you have enough diversity in it, whereas here we are building it over time. So we are currently looking at a couple of rooftop solar deals in Vietnam. There's something in China we are working on. There's a deal we are working on in Singapore. So renewable front, offshore wind, utility scale, rooftop, and corporate PPAs. What we hope to see going into the future also is storage solutions, right? And this could be either as a standalone storage solution. We did a deal in Australia last year, the Wonder One battery project with a long-term offtake contract, or it could be mixing of solar, wind, and battery to provide 24/7. We advised a sponsor on something in India on the round-the-clock tender. We advised on the Project Indonesia bids in Indonesia last year. I do expect that in Asia, given where the market is, the storage solutions will probably pick up first in Singapore, Australia, because they're more the developed markets, and then slowly spread into the region. One immediate opportunity would be to sort of replace some of the peaking plants, which are diesel based, with the storage solution plus renewable, which will then be more economical and climate friendly.
Fascinating.
What we also thinking of is to see how do we help the companies in the region in transition. So, are there projects which are where there's capex required to reduce the carbon intensity, and that's something we are keen to look at as well.
So, as you reminded us that as the economy transitions, so does finance, and the really important area of innovation around finance, not just around things like rooftop solar, but the role that finance plays in supporting the transition and the decarbonisation of the wider economy. Thanks very much for joining us this week. It's always great to chat. Thanks again.
Thanks, Nick.